After distributing 8 Friday the 13th films, the last 5 of which had drawn lower and lower box office returns than the one before, Paramount Pictures had finally thrown in the towel on Jason Voorhees. Key figures within the company, namely high-level producers, had been ready to say goodbye for over a decade, but now it was truly over. I opened the last installment of this series talking about how hot Freddy Krueger was, how profitable that franchise had been, but now, just a few years later, A Nightmare on Elm Street was facing the same situation. The general public's interest in not only the slasher genre, but horror in general, had fallen off a cliff. But you know what they say, when one door closes, another door opens. Paramount weren't interested in Jason Voorhees anymore, which made it much easier for someone else to step in and say, hey, I'll take it off your hands. And you know who that person was? None other than series creator Sean S. Cunningham, who hadn't been involved with the series at all since the original, which he directed. Why would he return now? Well, he saw the writing on the wall. Jason was on ice. Freddy Krueger was on ice. If he could get Freddy's home studio, New Line Cinema, to foot the bill in buying the rights to Jason, these two horror icons would finally be under the same umbrella. The clash of the titans would finally be possible. But it wouldn't be that easy, as we'll discuss here today. There were still several stops and starts on the road to the ultimate showdown. Oh, and 3 more entire movies, too. We've seen the highest of highs and lowest of lows thus far, so what could possibly be in store for us today? Jason Goes to Hell is going to return our famous killer to the Earth, whereas its sequel, Jason X, will send him to the stars. Yeah, Jason in space, where his broken down and beaten body will be repaired by technologically advanced space ant things. Oh, Jesus. Welcome to the history of Friday the 13th, Part 4, From Hell to Space. Every video here on 616 Entertainment is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoyed the show here today, consider signing up. You'll get early access, exclusive videos and podcasts, and more. Pro Wrestling Tees has the merch. As always, thank you for watching. What did I mean earlier? That there were still several stops and starts on the way to Freddy vs. Jason. Sean S. Cunningham was successful in forming a partnership with New Line Cinema to bring Jason under Freddy Krueger's banner, so what the hell? Why not get to work? Well, Cunningham found himself asking that exact same question when, out of the blue, Wes Craven's A New Nightmare was announced. Much like Cunningham's return to Friday the 13th, Wes Craven was back for A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's funny how these two returns lined up. A New Nightmare not only threw a massive wrench into the long-awaited slasher showdown from a scheduling standpoint, it also completely erased literally all of the existing franchise lore. It turns out that everything you'd seen thus far, these were all just movies. Nancy was just a character being played by the actress Heather Langenkamp. Freddy Krueger was a movie villain portrayed by Robert Englund. So that's great, this character we'd been following for like 15 years. A character we loved and couldn't wait to see finally fight Jason Voorhees. All of this was bullshit. Cool, that's great. If I were Sean Cunningham, I would be slamming my head against a wall like, what are you doing? This movie is awesome, by the way. It's one of the best in the Nightmare series, but anyway, is this the history of A Nightmare on Elm Street or the history of Friday the 13th? Let's get back to Jason. With Freddy Krueger now apparently doing his thing again, Sean Cunningham said, well, what the fuck? Let's do our thing again, too. We'll at least make some money and keep Jason relevant while they do whatever it is that they're doing. And that is all Cunningham had in mind. Let's also do another movie while we wait for them. He didn't care what it was about. He didn't care where it left things when it was all said and done. Just make another one. There were several orders he put in place though, with order number 1 being to ignore Jason Takes Manhattan completely. And that's just great. You have to love that sort of thing, right? So now part 5 and part 8 officially never happened. Order number 2 was, and I quote, "Get that damn hockey mask out of the movie." No, I am not kidding. We're off to a great start. You know better by now than to expect any past writer or director to return, so let's not even dance around it. Our director here for Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, and yes, that's the actual title. There is no Friday the 13th on it at all. Our director is Adam Marcus. At 23 years old, Marcus was the youngest director ever hired by New Line Cinema. What had he directed prior to Jason Goes to Hell? Nothing. How'd he wind up in this position? Well, he grew up being best friends with Sean Cunningham's son, Noel, and he'd been shadowing Sean Cunningham for years, learning little bits and pieces about the industry. When this 9th film in the Friday series needed a director, who could possibly be cheaper than somebody with no directorial experience whatsoever, right? With orders to ignore Jason Takes Manhattan, the initial plan for Jason Goes to Hell saw a frail man pulling Jason's body from the depths of Crystal Lake. This man would dissect Jason's body, performing a full autopsy, and would inherit Jason's powers. This frail, mysterious man would be revealed as Elias Voorhees, Jason's long-lost twin brother. This concept was mostly abandoned. Writing Jason Goes to Hell would be Dean Lowry, who also had a relationship with Sean Cunningham, having written My Boyfriend's Back, which Cunningham produced. Lowry's initial pitch for this film was Jason Takes LA, where the plot would revolve around rival gangs having to call a truce in order to take down Jason Voorhees. Obviously, this idea was never even considered. We have a ton to cover here today, so I will spare you the granular details, but Lowry was not the only writer on this project. And by the time cameras rolled, they were shooting what they had hoped were the best parts of 4 different scripts stitched together. Editor David Handman told Crystal Lake Memories author Peter M. Brack, "It feels like it was Frankenstein together," and it was. We wound up with a movie that was basically about people with things in their throats. If you're wondering what the hell that means, hey, I get it. This is Friday the 13th, right? This is Jason Voorhees, right? Things in people's throats? What are you talking about? I can answer this question, but to do so, we're going to have to dive into the story. But before we do that, let me correct myself a little bit. I said this is Friday the 13th, right? And it's not. Technically, it's not. When New Line Cinema purchased the rights to Jason, they did not purchase the overarching rights to the title and the franchise. They purchased the rights to Jason. Are you following along here? As a matter of fact, you will notice from here on out that the title Friday the 13th is actually never used again. Well, until we get to the reboot, but that's a part 5 conversation. Let's dive into the story of Jason Goes to Hell. There's an extremely babed up woman by herself visiting Crystal Lake. What a terrible idea, right? Immediately she gets naked, and immediately Jason shows up. He looks like shit, and obviously he's not a little boy anymore. Remember, Jason Takes Manhattan now officially never happened. Forget about it. Jason chases her through the woods until the trap is sprung. This was an FBI sting. The soldiers unload their weapons into the Crystal Lake Killer, and then BAM! A missile blows him to pieces. Holy shitballs. Jason was just blown up. The remains are brought to the morgue. The coroner details the damage. He examines Jason somehow still beating hard. And then he fucking eats the thing. He just bites right into the fucking thing and eats it whole for no fucking reason whatsoever. As if the missile and explosion were not enough, I could not believe what I was seeing when this happened. What the fuck is this movie? What is going on? Another coroner comes in and hurls insults at Jason.
Badass, maggoty, blown up fuck? Suck this!
Honestly, this is what the entire film feels like. It's an insult. Jason was made out to be useless in Part 7. Takes Manhattan is a pile of shit. And here, this movie might as well be called Fuck Jason Voorhees. Here's something that has nothing to do with him. What a mockery of an icon. Anyway, this guy is brutally killed by... he was killed by this dude, who we're shown is carrying the essence of Jason Voorhees. And make no mistake, this reflection is not a little wink to the audience. Later in the movie, the characters themselves physically see Jason in the reflection as well, even though that makes no sense. So what is the plot here? You're probably tired of me saying there are teenagers, Jason kills them. If that's you, if you're annoyed by that, then you are in luck, because that's not what this movie is at all. Get ready for this. Creighton Duke, this bounty hunter guy, he explains that the only way Jason Voorhees can be killed is by the hand of another Voorhees, and only through a Voorhees can Jason be reborn. So, Jason can't be killed because there are no other Voorhees family members out there, right? Wrong! Jason has a sister all of a sudden. This sister has a daughter who also has a daughter. So, there you go. 3 more Voorhees out of nowhere. Ugh. Second part, Jason can be reborn through a Voorhees. That's Jason's motivation. He wants to get his body back. For what reason, nobody knows. His body was a fucking wreck. Why not take a new one? He apparently doesn't want to be black, because he jumps out of this coroner's body the first chance he gets. How? Well, by capturing, stripping naked, strapping down, and shaving this guy. Why is this guy naked? Nobody knows. Why does Jason shave him? Nobody knows. The director laughs about how this doesn't make any sense in the Blu-ray commentary track. As a matter of fact, the director and the writer laugh at the entire movie, talking about how none of it makes any sense at all. I'm glad they find it funny, but I don't. How does Duke know any of this stuff about Jason's life and death? Nobody knows. How does he know that this dagger is the only tool that can kill Jason? Nobody knows. What are these spirits? Nobody knows. Why will Duke not offer any information unless you let him break your fingers?
And everyone has a price. Are you ready to pay?
Yes.
Oh, fuck! Nobody knows. What the hell are these things? Nobody knows. Again, the director and writer laugh about these things in the commentary track. Great. So what did they say? A Voorhees has to destroy Jason's heart to kill him? That's funny because Tommy Jarvis wasn't a Voorhees, and he killed Jason in Part 4. And hold on, the heart must be destroyed? Didn't eating it destroy it? I don't know. The entire town is celebrating the apparent manhunt underway, and the press it's bringing them. This local diner is offering the Voorhees burger, which is labeled as a hollow cash grab. Hey, that's just like this movie. Long story short, Jason's sister is killed after doing practically nothing. The new body with Jason's essence in it throws up a dick worm which crawls up her pussy. By the way, this scene was not in the script, nor was actress Erin Gray told it would be a part of the movie, and she didn't know it existed until she saw it at the premiere in front of everyone, which she found violating. Very classy of the director. Anyway, being that she was a Voorhees, Jason is reborn. into the exact same fucked up, gnarled, piece of shit body he had at the beginning of the movie. It's the same thing, all the way down to the stains on the shirt. Why wouldn't he be reborn into a new body? Even if it's his own, why wouldn't it be a new version of him and look like part 3 or something without all the wounds he has suffered over the years? I don't know. Who knows? Who cares? The final battle consists of Jason grabbing this guy and throwing him. And then he throws him again. And then he throws him again. And then he throws him again. And then he gets stabbed and glows, and demons made of the earth emerge from the dirt and drag Jason below, presumably to hell. Our leads walk off into the sunset, and Jason's mask is pulled underground by the glove of Freddy Krueger. Now let me say something here, because I have gotten a few comments asking me why I would even bother doing a retrospective on something that I hate. If you somehow haven't noticed by now, I don't hate Friday the 13th. I actually love Friday the 13th. That said, some of these movies are fucking terrible. Nobody asked why I would bother covering Halloween after I eviscerated the abortion that is Halloween 5, after I threw away the junk that is Halloween 6, after I pissed on the garbage that is Halloween Resurrection, after I buried the corpse of what was Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. So what are we doing here? Are Friday the 13th fans just a lot more sensitive, or what's going on? Anyway, that's the story of Jason Goes to Hell. Freddy Krueger's glove pulling Jason's mask beneath the dirt at the end of the movie was not a setup for Freddy vs. Jason. Director Adam Marcus actually had no creative right to do such a thing. He just tacked it on because he legally could and thought it would be a cool thing to do. So that's great, right? That's responsible. If you're keeping score, Freddy vs. Jason still would not happen for another 10 years. So, good job there, guys. Good job. But Freddy wasn't the only icon present here where he didn't belong. The Necronomicon, aka the Book of the Dead, straight from the Evil Dead franchise, also appears at length. Seriously, it gets close-ups. Why is this here? It's here because Sam Raimi lent this prop to director Adam Marcus, who thought it was so cool that he included it in his movie. There is no in-universe explanation for what this book is, why it's here, what it does, what it has to do with Jason. Marcus legally could not explain anything regarding this book, as New Line had no rights to Evil Dead. Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash would eventually be a comic book released in 2007, a comic book which I did a whole retrospective on that you should check out. But yeah, that's it. It's literally just here because the director was like, oh, that's cool. There were several corny shots that Sean Cunningham hated, shouting, "Film school!" when they'd watch the work in progress during the editing. And Cunningham was right. Jason Goes to Hell is clearly directed by a 23-year-old who really has no idea. The final Friday is an absolute amateur mess. And I don't put all of that blame on Adam Marcus. Sean Cunningham not only gave Marcus the job, but he was on set constantly. He reshot a ton of this movie himself because he hated it. And he has since labeled this film beyond an embarrassment. He told Crystal Lake Memories that he can't stand the body swapping plot. Dude, you approved all of this. Ugh. And it goes further than this. There's a whole story about Cunningham forcing them to shoot this movie at 22 frames per second, which then caused all of the audio to fall out of sync, which would have to be resynced as they went, with the pitch having to be constantly lowered, otherwise it would give away that it was sped up in the first place. What the fuck was he thinking? Cunningham stated that before he stepped in and called for reshoots, the movie was unreleasable. It was 45 or 50 minutes that felt like it went on for 4 days. Even after we've looked at Part 5, Part 7, and Part 8, there's a chance that the final Friday is the biggest, most incoherent mess of any of them. What an accomplishment. Did I mention yet that the opening scene originally would have featured a flashback where child Jason was having sex with his own mom? No? Good. Let's pretend that they never even had that idea. Kane Hodder still plays Jason Voorhees here in the final Friday, even though Jason's barely in the movie. What does Kane think of this body swapping stuff? He's openly stated that he doesn't like it, and he thinks it strays way outside of anything fans would want to see. I'd rather not know all this backstory about him, is what he told Crystal Lake Memories. Yeah, you and everyone else, Kane. Kane even tried to talk to all of the different actors who were possessed by the essence of Jason, pitching them on mimicking his body language and attempting to move like he would move so it would be identifiable. Not a single one of the actors were receptive to this, according to Kane, nor was the director. That's great. Maybe it's a good thing he wasn't very active in the role this time, as he described this outfit to be the hardest to perform in by far. The hockey mask was not a separate piece this time, meaning he could never remove it to breathe easier between scenes. Not only that, but in addition to the rubber mask of the head, there was a full rubber bodysuit as well that was hotter than anything he'd ever had to wear prior. Why was this rubber bodysuit necessary? Who knows? Jason's clothing isn't torn up to the degree that we ever really see it, so you can't even really tell that it's there. You know what's nice, though? Kane Hodder gets to show his face and even speak in this movie. There he is. I hope he got paid extra for this. Negative, negative, negative. I know. Look, there's very little that I have to say about Jason Goes to Hell that isn't negative, but I will do my best right now to skew in the other direction. Let's give this a shot. It is not hard to compliment the special effects here, which were handled by KNB for the first time in the series. When Jason's essence leaves his body, the person who carried it fucking melts to a pile of goo. Holy shit, this is amazing. This is what it's all about. God damn. See, if this movie were called Soul Jumper or something and had this type of gore, it would be far less offensive to me as a fan of Jason Voorhees. The effects are not the problem. Even the stupid ones that I hate, like the punched-in mouth, it's still fun to see. It's still well done. It's worth noting that this was the first time a Friday movie was made where the crew were told to go as gory as possible. Do whatever you want, without compromise. Because we know the MPAA will cut it up, but who cares? Because now, Laserdisc was a thing. All of that cut violence and content could be included on the Laserdisc release, which would be a secondary marketing tool. Very canny for the time period. Very smart business. The finale, where Jason is pulled beneath the dirt by the earth monsters or whatever. This was initially going to be done with miniatures and puppets. The studio didn't like the way this looked, I guess, so it was scrapped. And come on, what a mistake. This shit is so cool. This effect is straight out of The Thing. Check that out. The role of Creighton Duke went to Stephen Williams, but the Candyman himself, Tony Todd, even auditioned for this part. That would have been a cool piece of history. This crate right here is a reference to Creepshow, which, again, is just another thing that the director thought would be cool to do. And speaking of the director, Adam Marcus, I will point out that he's in the movie. There he is. The writer, Dean Lowry, is here too. There you go. Who the hell taught these cops how to hold a gun? What is this stance? You want some beautiful dialogue?
You want me to cuff you? What makes you think you can? I got a gun. I got a gun. And I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind. Jason Voorhees.
Well, that makes me think of a little girl in a pink dress sticking a hot dog through a donut.
The fuck is that?
It's Jessica's baby.
You little cutie pie. It'll be just as cute when it's on the fucking street. Now get it out!
I stole Diana's body. And then I went home and fucked her daughter.
Although the Elias Voorhees twin brother angle was cut and never used, Jason is described as being the son of Pamela and Elias Voorhees. Jason's father had never, ever been mentioned up to this point, and he never will again. This was another instance of the director just thinking it would be a cool thing to slip that into the lore. There was a specific quote in the Crystal Lake Memories book that stood out to me, and I would like to read it to you now and share it with you and address it in this video. In response to the fans who say Jason Goes to Hell has nothing to do with Friday the 13th, or there's not enough Jason, or it's way too much of a departure, director Adam Marcus stated, "There are a lot of fans who should examine themselves a little bit and wonder why they want to keep watching the same damn movie over and over." Continuing that fans shouldn't hamper the filmmaking community because they don't want to make the same thing again and again. To blame fans because you decided to make a Jason movie that has really nothing to do with Jason and they don't like it for that reason is ridiculous. Because it's not just the fans. Sean Cunningham hates this movie. Kane Hodder doesn't like this movie. But to further your statement by saying that the filmmaking community don't want to make the same thing again and again, then you shouldn't have signed on for Friday the 13th, you fucking idiot! Make something else. Create something original. If you create something original, nobody will have the standards and expectations of an established franchise to hold you to. Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, released on August 13th, 1993. It was absolutely buried by critics, and this time, even the fans hated a Jason movie. On a budget of $3 million, The Final Friday drew $15.9 million at the box office. It made money, statistically, but this was barely above Jason Takes Manhattan, and was the second worst financial return in franchise history. New Line Cinema probably hoped it would do much better, but hey, A New Nightmare had a budget nearly 3 times the size of The Final Friday, and still grossed less than $20 million in its own right. These were technically moneymakers, but not by much. The glory days were definitely in the past. Though it must be noted once again that A New Nightmare is really good. And director Adam Marcus believes that under the original and part 2, Jason Goes to Hell is the 3rd best film in the entire franchise. And I guess I'm glad he feels that way. I mean, he's probably literally the only person in the world who does feel that way. And hey, good for you, man. I'm not going to get into how I've read and listened to him tell the same stories on multiple occasions, and how the stories change drastically. I'm not going to get into the fact that Disney didn't want a 21-year-old with no experience directing Johnny Zombie, so they turned him down. Meanwhile, he will tell you in this interview that it was him who walked away from this Disney film because he could see what they were doing to the movie. The guy is a liar. He says in this same interview that he never got a complaint from the studio. Meanwhile, he was removed from the set after arguing with his star that she'd do a nude scene that she never agreed to and was uncomfortable with. Sean Cunningham had to come in and do the rest of her scenes with her after this, because she was no longer comfortable being around Adam Marcus. But he never heard a complaint from the studio, right? Which one is it? You can draw your own conclusions on Adam Marcus, but I don't think you need any help drawing conclusions on Jason Goes to Hell. It's a piece of shit that feels like it was made by a hack who was hired by a hack, and this isn't a situation where people don't like it because they weren't ready for it. They don't like it because it sucks. It's incoherent. It is overflowing with ideas that didn't belong to the studio, so they couldn't legally be fleshed out. It is teeming with pieces of huge concepts that were removed from earlier scripts that now don't make any sense because the only things that survived are like steps 2 and 6 of an 8-step plan. The more I learn about this director and how he refuses to take any responsibility for any of his movies' downfalls and poor reputation, the more annoyed I get. So, fuck it. That's that on that. Adam Marcus went on to co-write 2013's Texas Chainsaw 3D, another pile of shit that turns Leatherface into the fucking hero of the movie, where he lives happily ever after, vowing to always watch over this young woman with his chainsaw. Oh my god. With Jason in hell and Freddy Krueger rebooted and retconned and a total mess in its own right, now was the time to book the fight. Now was finally time to get this show on the road. Nope! Over the next 10 years, Freddy Krueger would go on to do nothing, while Jason Voorhees for the next 10 years would do nothing. And when he did come back, Jason that is, he went to space. It's only natural to wonder how in the name of God we wound up in space. What the fuck happened to Freddy vs. Jason? That was the whole plan. Both characters got a new movie. Where is Freddy vs. Jason? I'll keep it quick. After Jason Goes to Hell came out and sucked and disappointed at the box office, Sean Cunningham started paying writers to pen the script to Freddy vs. Jason. He didn't like any of them, so they started taking new scripts from new writers. And then they did that again, and again, and again, and again, and the next thing anybody knew, 6 years had gone by, with nothing even coming close to what Sean Cunningham was looking for. None of it was up to his standards. Granted, this is the guy who greenlit and produced Jason Goes to Hell, so we can only imagine how many good pitches were actually in there that he turned down. So with all of these years and millions of dollars wasted with nothing even close to a roadmap in place, he said, fuck it, let's do another Jason movie. Again, just make Jason so that he's relevant and we'll hopefully get a little bit of money out of it. He listened to pitch after pitch after pitch, and eventually, Jason in Space is the one that he thought was good. That was the move. Jason in Space. Not a single Freddy vs. Jason script in 6 years was to Sean Cunningham's liking. He wasn't into any of them. But Jason in Space, that's the ticket, that's the move. And here's the thing, I think we know well enough by now, he was into Jason in Space because it's not anything like Friday the 13th. I don't know what it is about Sean Cunningham or the people that he hires, where they have an established franchise with an established fan base, an established formula with an established iconic character. And the only thing that seems to light up Sean Cunningham's eyes is someone coming to him and saying like, I got an idea that's nothing like the shit people love. What's the point? Why? Why do that? Look, Cunningham said in an interview on the Jason X Blu-ray that after Jason Goes to Hell, I really started to understand Jason a little more. Jason Goes to Hell was the 9th fucking movie. How is it that you don't understand this character? How are you the person in charge? How did we get here? But you know what? I've been complaining for 3 straight movies now. I'm getting a little tired of it, and I'm sure you're probably getting tired of it too. And that's why I'm happy to report some good news. Jason X is kind of fucking awesome. Now hear me out. Hear me out. Is this a good movie? No, it isn't. And don't take it from me, the writer himself, Todd Farmer, has openly stated that this movie isn't good, and what was shot is extremely far from what he wrote. He specifically mentioned that the script underwent at least 100 rewrites. The production of this film was tortured, to say the least. Scenes were switched around, cancelled, cut, and compromised on a constant basis. Sean Cunningham, who wasn't a writer or director on the picture, just a producer, was showing up to set with new scenes that he personally wrote the night before, demanding that they be shot, claiming that they would improve the film. The director, Jim Isaac, was ecstatic to be working on the movie. At first, he'd worked for Sean Cunningham before on Deep Star 6 and House 3, so of course there was a pre-existing relationship there. There always seems to be on Cunningham's projects. But Isaac had been around the block on his own. He did special effects work on Return of the Jedi, on Gremlins, on Arachnophobia. These are big deals. This guy wasn't brand new. But when it all came down to it, he might as well have been. In several interviews conducted years after the release of Jason X, Isaac regretted not standing his ground on what he believed was good for the movie, stating, "I wanted to make this movie for teenagers because they were our audience. In the end, I wound up making it for Sean," which is a heartbreaking admission to hear from a director. Now that was all negative. You're probably wondering where the kind of awesome part comes in. Look, Jason X is silly. It's stupid. It's off the wall. And that's not a first for this franchise, right? The difference is Jason X knows exactly what it is. Even through all the production fuck-ups and failures, even though the script isn't even close to what was originally written, even though several of the scenes had to be pulled out and were replaced with useless bullshit, this is the type of useless bullshit that is bound to entertain you. We'll dive into the story in a little bit. Give me a minute to flesh out what I just said, that this movie is entertaining. Why is it entertaining? What works about it? First of all, look at these sets. They're fantastic. Jason X started shooting in 1999, and holy Christ can you tell. And I mean that in the best way possible. All of the spaceship interiors are handcrafted. The dashboards with their blinking lights and buttons, tremendous. Some of these kills are amazing. Of course, the sleeping bag slam is back. This time it's a 2-for-1. Homeboy bumping off a balcony and getting impaled on a cartoonishly large screw, with his body spinning all the way down to the base. That's a 9 out of 10. This babe getting her face frozen in liquid nitrogen. Then Jason smashes her icy head into pieces. That's a 10 out of 10. I love seeing how happy the crew were to apply just the right amount of disgusting goo to Jason's dead eyeball. Seriously, if you're a movie nerd, if you pop for this sort of thing, you really should get the Blu-ray. There's over an hour of behind-the-scenes footage, several documentaries with tons of interviews with the cast and crew, which greatly assisted in my research for this video. I can't recommend it enough. I also cannot explain to you how hard I popped seeing Mark Borchardt and Mike Shank from American Movie pop up in one of the featurettes. Are you kidding me?
All it is a rhythmic killing of about a dozen people per feature film.
Only like really cool people see horror films, I think, and that's what makes them good.
These fine-ass chicks are having sex and they get wiped out, man. That's what a slasher flick is.
Seeing Kane Hodder in and out of costume, adding his insight to several stunts and scenes, it's just really cool to have access to all of this stuff all these years later. Look at Kane Hodder standing in front of this hail of gunfire. Action! Blanks or not, that is scary as hell. This part here where Jason breaks this guy's neck, it was Kane's idea to not just snap the spinal cord, but to do it slowly. You gotta love it. Horror legend David Cronenberg even appears in this movie, a role he only agreed to take under the condition that they kill him. Excellent. Just excellent. Jason X had a massive budget by Friday the 13th standards, and it shows. Director Jim Isaac set out to take the $11 million allotted to him and spend every single cent of it on screen. He wanted to make an $11 million movie that looked like a $30 million movie, and for the most part, I feel like he pulled it off. Now, Jason X was shot in 1999, and after the movie was finished, it was complete, it was in the can, New Line Cinema put it on the shelf for over 2 years. By the time this thing came out, most of the luster was gone. Classy move. Great strategy there, New Line. But enough of the build-up, let's tell the story. It's a doozy, to say the least. First of all, this opening scene takes place in 2008. Why? Because they started shooting in 1999. Freddy vs. Jason was bound to happen at some point. And they didn't want to have to explain continuity or anything. So fuck it, put it a little bit in the future. If Freddy vs. Jason isn't out by 2008, it's never gonna happen. So it's 2008, we're at the top secret Crystal Lake research facility, which is hilarious, where Jason Voorhees is going to be cryogenically frozen. The government has apparently attempted to execute Jason in every way imaginable, and he just won't die. He also now apparently has the ability to regenerate lost and damaged tissue, which is so fucking funny. It's just another, hey, this would be cool, tossed into the lore bucket. If he won't die, fuck it, just freeze him. It's not a bad plan, I guess. I mean, throwing him into a volcano would probably be better. You can't regenerate something that doesn't exist. But getting Jason in a helicopter and safely dropping him into a volcano is like some Austin Powers level of stupid shit, so I guess I'll just shut up. Before Jason can be frozen, of course, he breaks free. He kills everyone in his path. Rowan, our lead, outsmarts him and locks him into the freezing chamber, but Jason plunges his machete through the wall, causing a catastrophic leak. The next thing we know, a crew arrives, exploring the depths of this facility. Their outfits are strange, their technology is advanced, and we learn after they've loaded Rowan and Jason onto their ship that the accident from the opening scene occurred over 450 years ago. Damn. Oh, and Earth is dead. Long dead. These people are from Earth 2. Rowan's old wounds are repaired by these microscopic future robot ant things, and she's back to life, trying to make peace with the shock of the passage of time. All peace is lost when she learns that Jason Voorhees was also brought aboard the ship, and the captain is not willing to blow his body out into the ether as he's far too valuable to file away. This feels exactly like the studio talking about the Jason IP.
In the end, it always comes down to money.
I feel like I'm about to see Jason Voorhees look at the camera like this is Wayne's World or something.
It's like people only do things because they get paid. And that's just really sad.
Shit goes off the rails as soon as Jason wakes up. He cuts through the crew, one by one. The hunt is on for the remaining survivors, and that's when this guy takes his android, which he's definitely banging. And, well, I'll let him say it.
Gave her an upload.
This is one of the worst lines in cinema history.
Gave her an upload.
Gave her an upload. You mean you upgraded her? You gave her an upgrade or something like that? I don't know. Either way, she's faster, stronger, and better than before, and she beats the shit out of Jason. Head blown off. Jason Voorhees is dead. Again. While our heroes attempt their escape, there's a malfunction. The very same ants that resurrected and repaired Rowan turn their attention to Jason. And now, evil gets an upload. I mean, evil gets an upgrade. It's the tagline of the goddamn movie. How did they fuck that up? Uber Jason is here, and holy shit, this is so deliciously stupid. Look at him. Rowan and Android Maker guy survive. How? They survive because they lock Uber Jason out. They blow up the rest of the ship, and just when you think it's all over, Jason is flying through space, still coming for them. Out of nowhere, Brodsky, the leader of the grunts from earlier, redirects the collision. He rides Jason down through the atmosphere of Earth 2. It's almost like they're sharing a Titanic moment. It's kind of nice. A teenage couple spending a romantic night lakeside on a campground see them falling. while we see Uber Jason's burnt and broken mask sinking into the depths of the lake. If you don't think this movie is stupid, you're insane. If you hate this movie and think it's the worst in the entire franchise, you're double insane. This is not the worst by far. It's not even close to being the worst. Again, Jason X knows what it is. Even with all of the garbage that the writer, the director, and the actors had to deal with, this is a horror action comedy in space that sets out to make you laugh. And at the end of the day, I think it's a job well done. It might just be a job done, but either way, at the end of the day, the mission was accomplished. I think one of the greatest examples of Jason X understanding the assignment can be shown off by comparing this film to Jason Goes to Hell. Adam Marcus wanted to do something different, and his approach to this was to completely remove Jason from his movie, to include inside baseball references to other franchises that the studio didn't have the license to do anything with, and to retcon in massive amounts of franchise lore to try and explain the point of what was happening. Todd Farmer and Jim Isaac's approach on Jason X to doing something different was to have a Jason movie, just do it in a new place. Instead of explaining what the audience was looking at with pages and pages of exposition, Jason wakes up from a 455-year slumber simply because two people started fucking. It's that simple. Oh man, that's funny. And you know what else is funny? I've always wondered what the deal was with the silver hockey mask on the movie's poster. Never does this mask appear in the film, nor is it featured in any of the deleted scenes. I learned in my research that there was a rejected Freddy vs. Jason script where Jason saw a chrome hockey mask in a sporting goods store, and he took off his classic mask to upgrade to this new one. Now obviously that version of that movie was never made, but I guess somebody liked the visual. Well, they liked it enough to put it on the next poster. Not quite enough to go that route for the entire movie. Not in the classic sense, at least. Let's talk about the Uber Jason costume. It's insane. Look at this. This shit is Power Rangers. He looks like Lord Zed. Kane Hodder said that this costume was extremely restrictive, and he could barely move one of his arms. The black part is leather. The armor pieces are made of Kevlar, and they're attached to the muscle suit with simple Velcro. This is another area where the special features were great. Seeing all of this created and fitted to Kane's body, it's awesome. You know what sucked though? There's a spot where one character's body is obliterated, sucked through a small hole that's covered by a steel grate, with the meat and the blood shot out into space. Even as a kid, when I had this movie on VHS, I found this part extremely underwhelming. It turns out, they knew it was underwhelming. The director hates this scene. All he needed was a little more time and a little more money. This shot was on the docket to be redone, but Sean Cunningham said no. He cut off the cash and was not interested in any further reshoots. Great. He also didn't allow the director, Jim Isaac, to influence the soundtrack at all, instead hiring longtime Friday composer Harry Manfredini to score the movie. Manfredini's music is great for a slasher movie in the 80s, but here, it doesn't really make any sense at all. The music feels completely out of touch with the visuals, which sucks. But I would like to talk about a few pieces of funny dialogue, like this one here.
You're lucky you weren't alive during the Microsoft conflict.
What do you think the Microsoft conflict was? Did it have anything to do with Xbox's exclusives coming to PlayStation? Jeez, wait for Gears and Halo to come over. We also learned that a major sport was outlawed.
It's a hockey mask. Facial armor. Used in a sport outlawed in 2024.
I hope all of you hockey fans are having fun with what is clearly your final season. Man, I remember being 12 years old watching this movie on VHS. It was 2002, and I remember hearing KM say that hockey was abolished in 2024. And I sat there thinking like, That's so far away. That is so distant. What is life gonna be like in 2024? Where will I be? What will I be doing? I gotta tell you, I don't think I imagined myself still talking about this scene from Jason X. What's not funny is what I mentioned earlier, that Jason X was completed, finished, in the can, ready to go, and it was thrown on the shelf for over 2 years. When it finally released, everything it had going for it was old news. The movie finally hit the big screen in 2002, at least here in the US. On a budget of $13 million, this 10th Voorhees film pulled in just $17 million at the box office, making it the biggest failure in franchise history. Now, that's not the lowest gross, but factoring in the budget and the marketing and everything, it's the worst result. You get the picture. Never in a million years would I have made or even greenlit this movie if I were in charge, but for what it is, I get it. I would take Jason X over Jason Goes to Hell any day of the week. Hell, I would take Jason X over Jason Takes Manhattan. I would take Jason X over Part 7. I would take Jason X over Part 5. From a conceptual standpoint, this is undoubtedly the dumbest of them all. It's Jason in space. But they knew what they were doing, and they understood the assignment. For Sean Cunningham, this entire movie, before, during, and after production, was looked at as a one-off, as a joke, as another simple placeholder and hopeful money-making scheme until someone came to him with an idea for Freddy vs. Jason that he liked. I feel for the writer, whose work was completely stepped on. I feel for Kane Hodder, who, despite me not loving his work as Jason, he clearly enjoyed this role. It meant a lot to him. He did not have kind words for the studio regarding this movie being delayed for so long, that's for sure. It sucks that he cared so much about the character, and he arguably stars in what might be the 4 worst movies in the entire franchise. But most of all, I feel for the director, who was coerced into bringing someone else's vision to life, rather than his own. It's unfortunate that I have to note this here at the end, but Jim Isaac actually passed away in 2012 after a battle with cancer. He was only 51 years old. I never felt like my dad was old when he passed away, and he was 10 years older than Jim. That puts things into perspective. If it's been a while, pop in Jason X. Raise a glass to Jim Isaac, kick back, and have a good time. There are certainly no Academy Awards to be won here, but there are laughs, shocks, and space babes. And really, what more could you ask for? I mean, outside of the long-awaited showdown between Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. The showdown which we will be looking at next time. Oh, there it is, Dan-Dans. Thank you for joining me for this, the history of Friday the 13th, Part 4, From Hell to Space. Next time out, we wrap it all up. The history of Friday the 13th, Part 5, Fighting Freddy and Reboot Revival, is our final stop with Jason Voorhees. But we're just getting started with horror content here on 616 Entertainment. Let me tell you something. The angry video game nerd, James Rolfe, he created a show in 2007 called Monster Madness. Every day in October, James would release a brand new horror review in celebration of Halloween. He created this show because TNT's Monster Vision no longer existed. He picked up the torch, carrying it for a new generation. Monster Madness comes and goes. It's still around for the time being, but it's not what it used to be. The style has changed considerably. So in the same way that James carried the torch, now it's my turn. Scream Sequence, razor-sharp reviews of your favorite creepy classics is back, and I aim to deliver a brand new scripted in-depth horror review every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday all through October. Now, am I going to be able to pull this off? I genuinely have no idea. Hopefully by the time that you are seeing this video, I have several Scream sequence reviews done and ready to go. Either way, I'm going to take longtime Dan Gwinoki's advice, and I'm going to label this whole thing a challenge. So if it fails miserably, I can just say that the challenge didn't work out. You know, it's a get out of jail free card. I'm going to do everything I can to make this Halloween season special for you guys. And if you're along for the ride, feel free to support me over on patreon.com/616entertainment or right here on YouTube under a channel membership. They are basically the same thing. There's no point in signing up for both. I'm not asking you to do that. Monday Night Blitz, Let's Play Friday, and GM Showdown are exclusive to these memberships. So if you're looking forward to watching those shows, this is how you do it. Whether you sign up for anything or whether you just like to watch these videos for free, the message is the same. Thank you so much for your support. I am really looking forward to October. I am hoping that these Scream sequence reviews really scratch that horror itch for you guys, and I hope you're excited as well. Until next time, I love ya, and I will see you soon.